Margaret famously said that she'd reached this momentous decision all by herself, and this was a big decision in her life. There she was, a beautiful princess, apparently found the love of her life with the group captain Peter Townsend, and they'd announced that they were going to get married and everything was going to be, well, totally different. It reminds you of somebody very similar, doesn't it, with, of course, the former royal known as the Duke of Sussex, Prince Harry. This was for a very first time a royal was stepping out of the realm of being a royal and basically saying, I'm giving all of this up for love. Of course, it had happened before in the 1930s with Edward and Mrs. Simpson. But moving forward on this momentous day in 1955, things had literally radically changed. And in the last 19 hours together, which were played out literally in all the tabloid newspapers of the day inside Clarence House, there was a very difficult decision for the beautiful princess to come to terms with, one that had not been told to her until that particular moment. Let me explain. Hi, good to see you. Thank you so much. Yes, we're in the depths of London's underground once again. And of course, always lovely to share this royal history with you. It's funny, isn't it, when you look back all of those years ago, 69 years ago to this date, and this would have been the hot story of the day. It had gone on, of course, for many, many weeks. This was simply because Princess Margaret, the beautiful younger sister of Queen Elizabeth, of course, well, she'd found love, and it didn't matter. Love could conquer all, everything, This was from, of course, a princess who'd had, some people say, a very similar life, if you like, to the former royal known as the Duke of Sussex. She'd literally, well, been very much cosseted, looked after and feted by everybody around her. She was the darling, of course, of the London society, going out, living a sort of extravagant lifestyle that only many people could look for, particularly in post-war Britain. She felt that this was her moment. This was it, and she was going to give it all up for love. And then this happened. You see, the problem was that Princess Margaret had not banked on the fact that, well, literally royal life was going to change for her. She felt that Group Captain Peter Townsend would literally just fit into royal life and everything will be paid for. And of course, I'm being very blunt here. The problem that, she had was she could not understand, and this was spelt out by, of course, the Prime Minister of the time to her. The British public were not willing, of course, to just shell out and look after her. This was because people were still, well, reeling from the cost of the Second World War. She argued back that the public, the great British public, absolutely loved and adored her. She was their princess, and they would be happy by the fact that she'd fallen in love and found someone to share the rest of her life with. Then this particular bombshell was spelt out to her. See, very kindly, very gently, the princess was told this, that yes, by all means, go off and find love and enjoy love and etc. But you will be, well, exactly not, well, how can I put this nicely? You wouldn't have all the accoutrements that were normally assigned to the British monarchy. And this was something that apparently the very young princess at 21 years old had never thought of. She thought that this was just going to be a marriage that would be integrated and all of that sort of stuff. But because he was a divorcee, of course, things were slightly different way back in 1955. And this has already caused something of a scandal for the British monarchy, one that they wanted to put a lid on. Now, some people might say, and this sort of story goes, that she gave up everything, of course, for love, because she said that the monarchy meant more to her than, of course, her own personal love life and professional happiness, whatever you want to call it. But either way, some people might suggest that unlike a later royal in the shape of Prince Harry, she realised exactly what she was giving up. And it was a life that really, didn't matter how rich that person was, could not provide the same level of security and, more importantly, pleasure. And Princess Margaret did enjoy the world of pleasure, no two ways about that. Moving forward, of course, she then went on to find happiness and have beautiful children and all that sort of stuff. But apparently this was the story that she felt defined her. And it all happened at Clarence House on that fateful day 69 years ago. It's fascinating to think how history could have changed, if you like, if she'd have gone down that particular route. But even her sister, Queen Elizabeth, basically said, look, it's entirely up to you. I'll support you either way, but this is the will of the people. Fascinating look into history, isn't it? Neil Sean, Whitehall, in the very heart of London.